Hello, Bond fans, and welcome once again. So, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. I am the grand age of 25 years old, meaning that I am less than half the age of this film series, meaning that, shockingly, I was not around in the 1960s when Bond mania was undoubtedly at its height.
It has been documented time and time again how the 1960s were Bond mania years, especially around the time of Goldfinger, Thunderball, and You Only Live Twice. The secret agent spy craze had swept across the globe. Everyone wanted a piece of the James Bond action, and because of some unfortunate prior dealings Fleming had done before signing over the series to Gubby Rocket and Harry Saltzman, a couple of other blokes owned the rights to Thunderball and the very first James Bond book, Casino Royale. Then the guy who had the rights to the latter, Gregory Ratoff, wound up never being able to make a film adaptation and died in 1960. Then the fella who represented his widow after Ratoff died somehow managed to obtain the rights to Casino Royale himself. This guy was Charles K. Feldman, who, after a bit of flirting with the idea of making a serious Bond movie to contend with the official series, made the rather curious decision that he would instead create a spoof spy movie, along the same lines of his previous spoof movie starring Peter Sellers, What's New Pussycat?
Now, What on earth is this, I wonder? It's a note. Take this, it's for your own good. It's a little pill. Well, you know, you can't go against what a random note says. Chin chin. There we go. So, where was I? Yes, if you have seen my reviews of Johnny English and Operation Kid Brother, you'll know that I have mixed feelings about Bond spoofs, but, you know, let's look at the very first Bond spoof to see if that holds up at all. This is 1967's Casino Royale.
Much like the official Bond series, the film opens with a pre-credits sequence.
Mr. Bond? Yes? I'm Lieutenant Mathis of the Special Police. These are my credentials.
They appear to be in order.
Come with me.
The first joke of a comedy is always a kind of a tricky thing to get right. I mean, you know, if the joke works, you have the audience on your side immediately. If the joke doesn't work, you have your audience getting out their iPhones, Googling the film to find out how long it is. Over 2 hours? Okay, let's carry on, shall we?
The film proper then begins at the country estate of Sir James Bond, who is being visited by M and representatives of the CIA, KGB, and French intelligence. Judging by all the lions that roam Bond's driveway, we can only assume that he now lives in a safari park. Thus begins a running theme of this film. Pointlessly elaborate moments that clearly cost a lot of money to pull off, but in the grand scheme of things are utterly meaningless. We are then introduced to a retired James Bond, Sir James Bond, I should say, that is played by David Niven. A man who at one time was being lined up to star as the official James Bond, and even had Ian Fleming's seal of approval. Anyway, the officials tried to get Bond to come out of retirement to take on SMERSH, an organisation that has been eliminating agents all around the world, but Bond refuses, so M has Sir James's mansion bombed. Wow! I thought Robert Brown's M in License to Kill was as dickish as M could possibly get, but, you know, this guy really takes the cake. The whole thing seems to backfire as M himself is killed in the explosion. Karma for you there, I guess. So, Sir James decides to head up to Scotland to attend M's funeral. Natural response to have for a man who just destroyed your wonderful home, but Bond is intercepted en route by SMERSH, who reveal their dastardly plan is not world domination, not extortion, not treason, but rather...
Proceed with SMERSH Plan B. Sir James Bond is back with his morals, his vows, and his celibate image. We must destroy that image.
Oh yes, what a dastardly plan. We're going to embarrass James Bond and make him look very, very silly in the papers.
Bond arrives in Scotland to return M's remains to his widow, Lady Fiona, played by Deborah Kerr.
Oh yeah, did I mention that the cast list for this film is actually insane?
Practically anyone who was someone in the 1960s is in this thing. Heck, even M was played by famed director John Huston, and he isn't even in the movie anymore. He literally has a couple of minutes of screen time, and he's off. This, of course, works in the movie's favour, in a certain respect, because it is a downright pleasure to see some of these, superstars of their time on screen, even if, the loose and untidy script is making it really difficult to follow exactly what's going on. Speaking of confusion, it turns out that M's widow is not actually M's widow, but a Smersh agent called Mimi, with the same going for all of M's supposed daughters. They're all Smersh agents.
James Bond in an isolated location with legions of sexy women? I think we know what's going to happen here.
I'm testing the temperature of the water, as I always did for my daddy. Well, get in.
Get in?
Get in.
You're sure I'm not crowding you?
Get in.
Yeah, Smersh really weren't kidding, were they? Bond is actually celibate. Huh.
It's a weird choice, and I'm not entirely sure why it was made, and they don't really do much with it. It might be funny if Sir James had, turned over a new leaf or something and was having to fight back the urges here, but he just looks genuinely terrified by all the naked ladies. Maybe this would have worked if we'd have seen David Niven womanizing some women in, a flashback sequence or something, but anyway, for some reason, Sir James begins playing a bizarre Highland game involving tossing a ball at some ginger beardy chaps, and this gets Mimi all aflutter, it seems, as this is enough to make her fall in love with Sir James.
I'm sure that's not the first time in his life that the size of James Bond's balls have bagged him a lady. What?
It's this burning love that spurns her to help foil an attempt on Sir James's life before running away to become a nun, while Sir James heads back down to London to assume the role of M himself.
Good Lord, Moneypenny, you haven't changed a bit.
Oh, so much for that celibate image.
Actually, I'm Miss Moneypenny's daughter.
How is your dear mother?
After you left the service, she took the vows.
That seems to be the in thing to do these days.
Sir James, or, I guess he's M now. Should I call him M? No, for clarity's sake, I'll just keep calling him Sir James. Sir James orders that all MI6 agents change their names to James Bond 007. Okay, maybe for clarity's sake, it actually will be easier for me to call him M. No, this is all a ruse by Sir James, David Niven, that guy there, to confuse the audience, to confuse Spectre, to confuse the Smersh.
This is all becoming very confusing. You know what would cheer me up? A seemingly inconsequential cameo starring Woody Allen as Sir James's nephew, Jimmy Bond.
Here we go.
Could I have a last cigarette? I'm gonna give it up any day now. Thank you.
Listos!
You realize this means an angry letter to the Times.
Apuntar! Fuego!
So long, suckers!
Apunto! Fuego!
Okay, I'll admit, that bit does get a genuine laugh out of me almost every time I see it.
Sir James decides to hire Vesper Lind, played by Ursula Andress, who gets to keep her real voice in this movie. Sir James hires her to hire baccarat player Evelyn Trimble, played by Peter Sellers, to beat a Smersh agent, Le Chiffre, at a game of cards and bankrupt him. Trimble takes on the name of James Bond 007, and we get a scene, but I'm not sure what's going on, really.
May I tell you something? I'm being followed.
Oh, yes, I know. It's part of the training. Shadowing people without being seen.
Yes, but the whole point of this is I can quite clearly see the man who is shadowing me.
Oh, Him. You don't want to worry about him. He's not one of our trainees. He's our security man.
See.
Oh, lol?
Yeah, there are a lot of jokes in this film that, well, I mean, I use the term joke loosely, but there's a lot here that I'm not sure if I fully understand. I don't know if they're just bad jokes or if they're just dated so terribly that no one outside of the 1960s understands them. For all I know, there could have been a little person-sized security guard that was talked about a lot in the papers or something around this time. Well, in reality, there was a deleted scene prior to this scene in which a little person stalked Bond around Harrods, joke being that Q Branch was located in Harrods' basement. But if you cut that bit, then cut this too. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense. After some borderline offensive are you being served like stereotypes that are even more campy than Mr. Winter, Mr. Kid, the film switches back to David Niven because it got bored of Peter Sellers? I don't know, but he heads to Thailand to find his estranged daughter, Mata Bond, who is now a dancer, and after a little glimpse of past and future Bond goon Milton Reed, we are treated to a absolute spectacle of a dance sequence, which is really amazingly choreographed and edited, and this set is just stunning. I mean, look at the height of the thing. It's just beautiful. The dancers are sensational. It's one hell of an entrance for Joanna Patet's Mata Bond, but what is it here for exactly?
It's undeniable that the sequence itself is really entertaining, but as soon as Bond and Mata sit down to talk, you kind of begin to wonder if what you just saw is really what you just saw, because it's so disconnected from everything else. Generally, films cannot just be set piece after set piece after set piece in a disjointed fashion. There has to be something cohesive about it, and while there is a thread, a single thread making its way through this film, it's so it's like tying 4 stampeding elephants together with a single cotton thread. It just ain't gonna hold.
And at no other point of the film is the thread at its most precarious than when Mata Bond is persuaded by her father to drive to East Berlin in the back of Bernard Cribbins' cab to infiltrate a spy school. For what reasoning exactly?
Now, your qualifications make you eminently suited to infiltrate the organization. 2 weeks briefing in London and you're off to Berlin.
Oh. You want me to be a spy like Mum, huh?
Okay, makes sense. Why not? You have to love the not-so-subtle digs at communism here. Mata enters the school of Dr. Caligari to find Frau Hoffner, played by Anna Quayle, and her assistant Polo, played by Ronnie Corbett, who is a robot or something. Is that a pacemaker? I don't know. I completely lose the plot, quite literally, around here.
Here we have the decoding and cipher class. Und here is our class in karate und self-defense. It is little Otto.
Who is he?
He was one of your mother's lovers. We often find him lying around.
Is he dead?
Hard to tell. He always looked like that.
I have no idea what's going on anymore. I mean, you really do need to keep notes throughout this entire film in order for it to make any sense at all.
Tonight we are selling one of the finest art collections in Europe.
The Chief's collection.
Who?
The Chief.
Who is Le Chief?
The man who owns the art collection.
What art collection?
The collection that's about to be auctioned.
Who said anything about an auction?
You did.
Who am I?
Frau Hoffner.
Never heard of her. You're insane, my child. Quite insane.
I think she's right.
Yeah, and exchanges like that don't help things either.
And it really doesn't help that the visual style of the film is in a constant state of flux. It's astonishing, the number of directors that worked on this. Oh, let's count them, shall we? Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there was also one other guy who didn't want his name on the film, so that makes 6. 6 directors worked on this film.
It's not unheard of at all in big budget movies for directors to change mid-production. It's, you know, it happens every now and then, but even when that happens, there is normally another voice to you know, make a cohesive, rounded product at the end of it. By the sounds of it, the cohesive voice for this film should have been Charles K. Feldman. He was the money man, he was the producer, he was bringing in all of this talent, but not gelling it together correctly. I mean, his method of employing people must have just been like, "Do you want to direct this picture?" Well, thank you very much, Mr. Feldman, but, I mean, you know, I'm directing a film in Africa for 14 months. I've really only got 4 hours free.
Good enough, you're hired.
Absolute, total and complete utter chaos reigns for the next 5 minutes or so. I have no idea what to say. Here are some of my highlights.
Remember, forget everything I tell you.
It's the first John I've ever gone round with.
Hey, it's war!
Look, I'm afraid I shan't be able to get back for dinner. Huh? There's sort of war's broken out.
Give me those films.
Oh, look here!
Ah, sorry, madam.
Oh, this way!
1, 2, pussycat!
No! Down, no!
Don't look at me. I don't have any answers for any of this. Well, I mean, you know, at least Joanna Patet looks as if she was having a blast making this particular section of the film.
Okay, admittedly, I actually quite like this sequence. I'm more than a little bit in love with Joanna Patet, and Anna Quayle and Ronnie Corbett are so funny and energetic. They bring a nice, fast pace to the sequence, and when all hell breaks loose and the Brits are fighting the Americans and the Chinese are fighting the Russians, it's actually quite funny. Heck, we even get a quick cameo here from Creepy Kronstein from Russia with Love. Okay, so Matter and Bernard Cribbings accomplish their goal of destroying the photographs, and Le Chiffre's plan to extort money from them is foiled, so his only remaining option is to raise money playing baccarat.
The ship speaking.
The whole scheme was a failure.
And also, Dr. Noah knows what you've been up to.
What now?
You just have to raise the money.
But how?
How? By playing baccarat.
Such a seamless segue back into the Peter Sellers chunk of the film.
But yes, Tremble arrives in France and meets with Mathis to receive his briefing during an S&M themed car wash?
Fascinating. You know what? I think I'll skip. I think I'll just go down the road to that car wash that Tibbet uses. There's a chance I might be murdered by Grace Jones, but even that would be less weird than this.
Tremble meets with Vesper at the Casino Royale, who has discovered that Le Chiffre is cheating at cards using X-ray sunglasses. I wonder if Q is a fan of this film. It's here that we're treated to some contractually obligated magic tricks from Le Chiffre, as Orson Welles had it in writing that he would only do the film if his illusion routine was kept in the final cut. I don't really understand why. I mean, I really don't get it. The tricks are great, sure, but illusions like this are only really impressive, I think, if you see them live on stage in front of your very eyes. In a movie where anything can be achieved through editing and special effects, they kind of lose their appeal, in my opinion.
Oh, excuse me, madam. Sorry to keep you hanging around.
At least Orson Welles looks as if he's having a good time.
That's the kind of remark that leads to war. How much better for all humanity if all the nations could learn to live together in peace.
Oh, marvelous, marvelous.
Hooray! Hooray!
Mob!
You'll notice, of course, that there are literally mere seconds of this film where Peter Sellers and Orson Welles are in the same frame, same shot, at the same time. This is because the pair hated each other during filming, and apparently this is a famous story, of course. It all stemmed from Princess Margaret visiting the set of the film, and Peter Sellers had met her before, and he put on all these airs and graces and whatnot. And when Princess Margaret arrived, she went straight past Sellers to Orson Welles, because she'd never met him before and she was fascinated to talk to him and whatnot. So Sellers made the perfectly sane demand that him and Welles would shoot their scenes on separate days, despite them supposedly being at opposite ends of a table together. Nothing uncommon about this. Of course, it's famously known that Judi Dench and Daniel Craig have never actually met in real life, filming their scenes often months apart. Don't ask why, though. It involves Prince Harry.
The game ends with Tremble winning, but Vesper is kidnapped, and after a cameo from Sterling Moss, because, well, why not? Everyone else in the world is in this film, Tremble pursues, but in a really bizarre, out-of-character moment, not in keeping at all with the character previously established.
Grand Prix enthusiasts may be worried by the amount of time it's taken me to get into this Lotus Formula 3. What they don't realize is that although Le Chiffre thinks he has a faster car than me, I am faster in my Lotus Formula 3.
Huh? What? That's it? They obviously forgot to film a car chase or something, as we cut straight to Le Chiffre torturing Bond. Not by bashing his balls in, though, but by something far worse. Editing!
One can only assume that this scene takes place at this point of the film in order to allow the LSD that everyone no doubt took during the main title sequence of the film to, work its way through the system and start, tripping people out. Wait a minute, that tablet I took at the start of the film, was that... It couldn't be, could it?
To have that check, Mr. Bond. I'm going to have that check, Mr. Bond. Let's
try another approach.
Have that check, Mr. Bond.
It's a shooting shot, Mr. Bond.
You're supposed to pick the winner.
You just try that in my bayou, boy!
Excuse me. Are you Richard Burton?
No, I'm Peter O'Toole.
Mr. Tremble! Never trust a rich spy.
Maybe this is how you're supposed to watch the film, completely high off your tits. You can just relax and just go with the ride of it, but all those damn bagpipes just make no friggin' sense at all. And why is everyone wearing kilts? And what the hell is Peter O'Toole doing here? Why does Vesper suddenly shoot Peter Sellers? It makes absolutely no sense at all.
If there was ever any scene in the movie so confoundingly dumb that it would snap any self-respecting druggie with at least 2 brain cells out of their euphoria, it's this. Le Chiffre is causing Tremble to hallucinate. Okay. But then Tremble ends up in some weird landscape with a lot of Scotsmen and Peter O'Toole. We naturally think that this is all in his mind, but then Vesper shows up and mows everyone down, including Tremble, so that wasn't an hallucination? Le Chiffre just so happened to hire dozens of Scotsman and Peter O'Toole for the sake of confusing Tremble? I mean, okay, yes, we all know that Peter Sellers walked off the set without finishing his scene, so they had to write him out of the film quickly and cheaply, but this scene is just so badly handled. It's really a marvel. And then Le Chiffre is killed by people inside his computer? Because why not? I guess it's a testament to the rest of the film that the most pointless plot thread in the whole thing is the bit that actually takes from the Casino Royale book.
So at this point we have 20 minutes of movie left. Are you comprehending the plot? No. Are you invested in the characters? No. Has the movie been funny enough to this point that none of that really matters and you're just kind of happy to go with the ride? No. No, it's an absolute mess, and it gets to this point and everything is kind of up in the air still. It's like once Orson Welles has died, it's like, well, where the hell is this story gonna go? I mean, it's been so stupid and outrageous that they could probably just have a flying saucer land in Trafalgar Square for no good reason and pick up the story from there. You know where this is going, don't you?
So, Matter Bond is kidnapped by Smersh and flown away in the saucer. Sir James and Moneypenny are now back in the film, apparently, as we follow them to Casino Royale, where they too are kidnapped, and as such discover that the casino is not actually a casino, but rather a front for a giant underground production designer's wet dream. It's here that we learn of the true identity of the leader of Smersh, and it's Woody Allen, playing Jimmy Bond / Dr. Noah.
Lord, it's my nephew.
It's one of the few jokes in this film that actually plays pretty well, I think, and indeed I would go so far as to say that Woody Allen is quite possibly the highlight of the whole movie. It's impossible not to at least chuckle at one or two things that he does in this last section of the film.
It's also here that we learn exactly what dastardly plan our evil mastermind has in mind. He's going to use biological warfare to turn all women beautiful and kill all men over 4'6" in height, leaving him as the tallest man on Earth and, ergo, will, of course, get all the girls himself.
Fair play to the guy, and it's an amusing enough evil plan, but it's had absolutely no bearing on anything up to this point. I mean...
Anyway, Sir James and Moneypenny are taken captive while Noah reveals more of his dastardly plan to a captured MI6 agent known as the Detainer, played by the stunningly beautiful Delia Lavi, who delivers one of my favourite lines in the film.
Your rain-cooled Tattinger, sir.
The drink.
I hope this isn't too weird a confession, but if I've taken away one thing from this film over the years, it's how Lavi delivers that line. Many a time, when I'm out with friends or whatever, I'll nudge someone and point to the bar and say,
"The drink!"
No one knows what I'm referencing, of course, but I'll keep doing it until someone does. So, the second part of Noah's plan is to replace all world leaders with robots whom he controls, which isn't actually too far removed from the plot of a James Bond video game, Agent Under Fire, where the baddie's plan revolves around replacing world leaders with clones. Noah's reasoning for his actions prompts an impressive set piece.
A world free of poverty and pestilence and war. A world where all men are created equal. Where a man, no matter how short, can score with a top broad. Where each man, regardless of race, creed, color, gets free dental work and a chance of subscription buying of all the good things in life.
But Noah...
It kind of sums up the film's attitude to money in general, doesn't it? I mean, that set must have been incredibly elaborate to design, incredibly expensive to build, and it's all for, like, one joke that could quite easily have been achieved in another way. Just, I mean, literally, wheel the choir in through the shot. I mean, you know, it feels like the ethos of this film was that, you know, if it's expensive and if we throw enough money at it, it's good, right? It's expensive, so it must be good.
The Detainer poisons Noah's drink with an atomic pill, causing him to hiccup animated clouds. Bond, Moneypenny, Matter Bond, and Terence Cooper... oh wait, yes, I didn't mention it earlier, but apparently Terence Cooper is in this film as one of the various James Bond 007s, and does a pretty good job at playing the character, actually. So much so, it's almost a shame this entire film wasn't built around him. Well, I guess everyone's contracts were expiring around the same point, because here, the Detainer, Moneypenny, and Matter Bond all exit the film briskly and rather unceremoniously.
I'm sorry I got you into this.
Good heavens, Daddy, I couldn't have enjoyed it more.
Good show.
I almost wish that David Niven had, like, turned to the camera to deliver that line, like, "Sorry I got you all into this," but, you know, I don't think the audience would have been as forgiving as Matter evidently is.
Anyway, Bond meets with Vesper, who reveals her motivations for betrayal.
This time it's for love, Sir James.
Don't expect...
Back to the office.
That's it? Well, okay, never mind, let's not dwell upon it, because it looks like the climax has arrived.
Compliment the ending of this film just a little bit, though. It is that, you know, it's incredibly lavish and over the top and expensive, and the music is energetic and everyone looks like they're having a good time. The scene has a great energy to it, but it's just kind of too little too late. If you've already lost the audience by this point, there's really nothing much you can do to get it back. I mean, it's an absolute mess, but then I suppose that's the point.
There are celebrity cameos, animals, laughing gas, explosions, Keystone Cops, cowboys and Indians. I guess this is a parody of the elaborate battles at the end of the past couple of official Bond films, but without any specific referencing, it is kinda impossible to tell. What you can tell, though, is that the joke barrel was well and truly dry at this point. This is just bored, confused, probably agitated people wondering how the hell to end this convoluted mess of a story and decide that the way to do that is not to end it at all, but just throw in anything and everything that they can think of to distract the audience until the lights come up and they can no longer claim their money back. I'd be lying if I said I didn't bask in some of this ridiculousness compared to the, some of the somber and more slow scenes early on in the film. This is a welcome addition to the film, but you can just feel the lethargy of the people behind the scenes. I don't think people knew if what they were making here was funny or not, but thought they'd just throw it all in anyway, because why the hell not?
Why not? The producer's hand is obviously just nothing more than a stump at this point, the amount of checks he's had to rapidly write throughout the production of this film. Sealions! Yes, Sealions! I mean, this is a Bond parody after all, so Sealions!
But if you really want to wrap up, if you insist, if you demand for an ending to this story, well, everyone dies. No, really, I mean everyone dies. That's the ending of this story. Woody Allen explodes, blowing up the casino and everyone whose contracts hadn't expired yet. And, well, that's it.
Six of them went to a heavenly spot. The seventh one is going to a place where it's terribly hot.
So, what can you say? I mean, really, what can you say about this film?
Casino Royale 67 is not a film that lends itself to scrutiny, really. It's a jumbled up mess of a movie, but it kinda knows it is. Its attitude is just sort of, lighten up and pass me a doobie, and maybe if you're high, this movie is fantastic, but for a non-intoxicated person, it is mostly just dull and confusing. The biggest problem is undoubtedly the story. There are some good individual jokes, I think, but it just needed some cohesion to hold it together as a whole. Sellers walking off the set was unfortunate, and I guess they wanted to get their money's worth of him, so didn't just want to start again with a new actor, but the attempt to construct a whole of a narrative to incorporate Sellers' scenes is what doomed this film in my eyes.
They should have just gone down an episodic route. I mean, if they wanted multiple Bonds, why not just have 4 half-an-hour segments? Each one its own little self-contained story.
The other fatal flaw is that to say there are so many characters with the name James Bond, there isn't really a James Bond character here. Peter Sellers plays his role kinda nebbishy goofball, and Niven plays his really milquetoast. The closest thing we get to a James Bond type is Terence Cooper, and maybe he should have been the lead here. It must have been really hard to spoof Bond, because, well, the official film series border on parody time enough as it is, but there really isn't a Sean Connery parody in here. Casino Royale is a spoof of the world of 1960s Bond, but never actually of James Bond himself, and very seldom the films themselves. Sure, we have Dr. Noah, and there are some Golden Girls in here, but why not spoof Goldfinger? Why not spoof Thunderball? The target of the parody here is really quite confused.
Well, what's good about the film? Well, the music is done by Baccarat, which is pretty incredible. I mean, the soundtrack even features the song The Look of Love, which actually won an Oscar for this film. This film is an Oscar-winning film.
The production design is suitably psychedelic and quite brilliant for the most part. I can't imagine how much of the budget went to the design, but I can imagine it was the bulk, with the second bulk going to paying the anyone who's anyone in the 1960s cast, which is astonishing. There is someone for everyone here. If you don't like Orson Welles, well, there's Woody Allen. If you don't like Joanna Petet, well, there's Ursula Andress.
I know I joked earlier about the haphazard hiring techniques of producer Charles K. Feldman, but even though that was a joke, I don't think that's actually too far from reality.
This guy treated making a movie like a party. You get your friends in for the day, make it rain with money, don't work to a deadline, just take it as it goes. And while this obviously isn't going to lead to a cohesive, rounded film, you'd think at least everyone would have had a ball making the movie. Well, not at all. The cast were constantly spatting, and Sellers' walkout pretty much doomed the film to failure. The crew were coming on and off the film as if they were going through a revolving door, and the one consistent voice throughout the whole production, the one man who could have maybe brought order and given the world a fun splendor of a Bond spoof, failed.
What makes it really frustrating is that there's no arguing that the caliber of the talent here is astronomical. The actors, this amazing cast, and you know, if there had been one person to actually put them all together to make sure that they melded, maybe they could have got something out of this, but the production was just missing that one person to give it a coherent voice. It all just kind of spiraled out of control into one big, bloated, expensive mess.
That doesn't mean there isn't some fun to be had, though. I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh at more than just a few things, and the cast are just so amazing that they can really hold your hand through the confusion and let you enjoy the elaborate non sequiturs, the beautiful sets, the misguided opulence that is Casino Royale.
But quite possibly the most baffling thing about this entire movie is that despite its astronomical budget, it actually made money.
And quite a bit of it! Woody Allen is famously quoted as saying, "The film will probably make a mint. Not money, but a single peppermint." And, well, he was wrong. Against a $12 million budget, the film made almost $42 million. Not a bad state of affairs at all, but if anything, it was a testament to the Bond mania of the time more than anything else. I'm guessing a lot of patrons paid to see the movie based on the James Bond name on the poster, maybe expecting something along the lines of the Connery movies, but well, I can't imagine what the atmosphere must have been like when people were leaving the theatre.
But then this was the 60s, so everyone was probably high, so who cares?
It's curious that this film's release was sandwiched in between Thunderball, one of the very most successful Bond films of all time, and You Only Live Twice, which ended up making less money than both Thunderball and Goldfinger. Is it possible that Casino Royale 66 might have actually hurt the James Bond legacy at the time? Or was the slip in box office of the official series only natural as it reached its fifth film? Or was the fifth film deserving of an even lower box office than it got? Well, we'll find out next time as we take a look at Sean Connery's first Bond swan song, You Only Live Twice.